Good afternoon. My name is William, and today I'm here with my team, Caleb, Jason, and YTech, and we would like to present to you Hydro One. Hydro One is a electric power company founded in 1998 in Toronto, and this came about as Ontario looked to restructure its power industry and actually separated it into two different organizations. One of them being Hydro One, which is in charge of the transmission and delivery of the power. The company's strategy is centered around customer service with now a strong focus on enterprise risk management and risk-based investment planning system on their new projects. A deeper look into these risks, we have actually separated into four different categories. One of them is operational risk, input risk, regulatory risk, and product market risk. Now, operational risk is going to be the risk that comes from the environment and how it affects and impacts the power supply. Input risk is going to come from internally, and it comes from the operations and performance and productivity. And this is really where the company's reputation could change. Regulatory risk is going to come from the government mandated regulations, and product market risk comes from the increase in demands for transmission and distribution from overseas. Now, to have a visual of these risks and prioritization, we have here a risk heat map comparing magnitude and probability. As we can see on the top right, we have electricity supply, getting the work done, which is the performance, productivity, and people aspect, and also government policy uncertainty. And these are going to be the highest prioritized risk for the company.
Hydro One's enterprise risk management consisted of a three-phase program. So in phase one, we had risk workshops and the Delphi method, and this consisted of top management within the company coming up with key strategic objectives and risks. In phase two, reviewing the corporate risk profile. So they were summarizing the principal risks that were facing the organization at the time. And then in phase three, we had a risk-based investment appraisal and planning. And what this was doing was helping mitigate any risk that the company had. So Hydro One came up with a system, and this controlled and rated risks systematically, and this was done on a semi-annual basis. So the goal here was they were monitoring their risk levels. So as we see in the severe and catastrophic, we have red, and so the company would spend money, and where that blue arrow is, they would want to get into the lower levels on the minor moderate level. And then you see that band that's curved, that is the company's risk tolerance that they're willing to tolerate with their risks. And so it was the goal of the managers to be responsible for the risk mitigation within their departments. Hydro One's major events and changes in risk categories. So they had to deal with government and government's policy, where the Ontario government would come in and tell them how they needed to dictate things. And then we had an issue with the electricity supply with the First Nations due to them not allowing them to finish off what they built. And the regulatory issues they had going on, the Ontario Energy Board would lower their cost of electricity for consumers, causing them problems. Then we had our capital markets, media, and outside of Ontario. So Hydro One was known as not a good company, and their culture was unacceptable. And then we had the last category of environment. And Ontario's continent was a solar hotbed, so their electricity they used a great deal within that area. The role of Hydro One's enterprise risk management created value. And so we had our three business objectives. The focus was transforming their company culture, what they did. They also improved their performance overall. And then they took a new approach to their business activities and investments.
Through their three-step program, Hydro One was able to identify important risks. Heat maps allowed them to prioritize risks, and from there they were able to mitigate and control any risks that were the most dangerous. It was effective because it was a conglomerate of information from many different sources. They were able to view the risks from many different viewpoints and develop approaches that were not only one-sided. Furthermore, and due to the regular risk checkups they did, that included outside news info and additional changes to risks, they were able to adapt their approaches as risks morphed. By progressively building a knowledge base and developing risk management plans that were often changing and rather flexible, they were able to achieve the most effective results. We have worked on developing several recommendations for Hydro One. These recommendations are strongly based on reducing future risks while focusing on environmental conservation. The Canadian government has many strong conservation goals that Hydro One could capitalize on by leading a primarily green initiative. If they increase their investment in renewable energy and source their energy from wind farms, hydroelectric, or even nuclear, they would help save the planet while decreasing the risks of losing profit from increasingly regulated fossil fuel and fossil fuel price risk. Would the risks have been different if Hydro One pursued different objectives? The case study tells nothing of how Hydro One plans to manage many key risks. Weather and environmental risks have a tremendous impact on their profitability and their use of electricity, yet it seems that the financial side of the risk has not been properly mitigated. Just as American Barrick managed gold price risk with futures, Hydro One could use weather futures to protect from weather fluctuations. We believe that there should be a much larger emphasis placed on using financial risk management strategies to protect the company from loss and ensure some semblance of minimum profit. And these are some of the discussion questions that will be posted on Canvas. And thank you guys so much for your time.